So Chris Christie is doing a tour for his new and terrible book. And it's hilarious watching CNN, MSNBC, all the so-called liberal networks welcome him with open arms. Why? Because Chris Christie is a Republican, but he positions himself and he postures as anti-Trump. So that's all it takes to make mainstream media lose their panties. And so now he's doing a fluff tour. Now, there have been a couple of more hostile interviews, you can say, and I'm going to show you one of them now. Let's watch and then we'll talk about it.
In that section of the book, I'm talking to Republicans about the way I believe we need to deal with media to be most effective for winning. The conspiracy theorists and truth deniers, which nobody else on either side of the aisle is writing about right now other than me. No one else is writing about that.
But do you want to solve them, is my question. If you want to solve the proliferation of conspiracy theories without dealing with Fox News, it's like solving terrorism without dealing with the terrorists.
Well, look, that's your opinion. I disagree with your opinion. And I don't believe, and I think it's irresponsible, Nicolle, to analogize Fox News to terrorists.
I'm not analogizing them. I'm talking about root problems.
No,
you write about being a prosecutor. And I want to understand what your solution is to the title of the book. It's about truth deniers and conspiracy. How do we purge the truth deniers and conspiracy theorists from the party? Yeah.
From our party. And it's by telling the truth to our voters.
Where?
To our voters.
Where do you do that?
Right in my book.
No, but where do you go? Where do you
go buy it? Go buy it. It's on sale today, and you can do it.
Where do you do it? Speeches? You do it in where do you?
Sure, I did it at the Reagan Library in September. I did it at the Republican Jewish Coalition just this past week, and every other place that I go, I will be talking about the fact that the Republican Party must once again be the party of truth, and if we do that, then we have a chance to be a winning party again, and if we don't, then we're going to be consigned to what happened to our party in the 30s when Herbert Hoover lost the House, the Senate, and the White House. The only other time it's happened in Republican Party history, and then we were out of the White House for 28 of the next 36 years. I don't want to see that happen to our country, and so that's why I'm speaking out. And I can't be responsible for everybody else, Nicolle.
I hear you.
I can be responsible for myself, and that's what I'm doing by writing this book and by coming out and talking to you about it, even in a place where my opinion may not be completely welcome.
No, I appreciate that. And I think you are a straight shooter, and that's why you're here. I just think that if you care about the party, I think Liz Cheney cares about the party. I think you have to deal with the places that echo the mistruths and the conspiracy theories. And I'm not judging you for not. I'm just asking if you think that's part of the solution or could be.
And what I'm saying to you is the battles that I want to pick are the ones that I picked in that book. And there's no one else picking those battles. And so I'm going to take those on. And then if there's more to take on to make sure that the party is the party of truth and the party of solutions for citizens in this country, I'll take those on too, because I've never hesitated to do that.
All right, so let's break this down. He says he wants the Republican Party to be the party of truth. That's laughable. Not going to happen. And he says we need to get back to being the party of truth. Really? When were you the party of truth? Under Abraham Lincoln? That's how far back you want to go? What are you talking about? Now, I'm not, by the way, I'm not saying that to then turn around and say, the Democrats are the party of truth. No. I have a brain that functions. Might not function the best, might not be, top notch, but it's enough to state the most obvious of obvious facts. So, his book is called Republican Rescue. He says he wants to go after truth deniers and conspiracy theorists. Nicolle Wallace correctly points out, well, you don't say a single word about Fox News in this book. And, you're really overlooking the elephant in the room if you want to rescue the Republican Party, but you have nothing to say about Fox News, which is largely responsible for radicalizing the Republican base over the course of decades. And his response to that is, he doesn't have an answer. Now, hold your horses. Let's not get too far ahead of ourselves here, because there's another big part of this conversation, and that's everything Nicolle Wallace is missing. Nicolle Wallace sets up this false dichotomy, and the implication is, well, Fox News is where the, truth deniers and conspiracy theorists are, but CNN and MSNBC and NBC and the nightly news, well, that's where the serious people are. And we're here to actually give you the news and information, and we're your friends, and we're honest. That's the implication. That also is objectively false and horrendously misleading, and it shows her colossal blind spot. So Chris Christie has many blind spots. So does Nicolle Wallace. Because, what were you, asleep during the Trump years? Did you miss all of Russiagate? By the way, pushed relentlessly by CNN and MSNBC, the most absurd versions of Russiagate, too. This idea that Trump was a Soviet asset since the 1980s and he's Vladimir Putin's puppet, when all of Trump's policies were way too hawkish against Russia. Way too arming Ukrainian rebels and putting them right on his border, having NATO be right on Russia's border. I mean, these are hawkish escalatory actions. It raises tensions. And Nicolle Wallace and MSNBC and CNN and all the mainstream news outlets were doing a conspiracy theory and screaming it from the rooftops, screaming it through a megaphone with no accountability whatsoever. And now, by the way, just so you know, the conspiracy theory has imploded so bad that now people are getting arrested for pushing it on the American people and lying about aspects of it. And the whole Steele dossier, and it all fell apart. There's been no reckoning on mainstream media. No reckoning. They pushed it as if it was fact, and now it's totally fallen apart, and now they have nothing to say about it. So don't tell me that you're the solution to conspiracy theorists. You do your own conspiracy theories. So that is really frustrating to me. Also, you got the idea that CNN and MSNBC and all these networks, like, we do the good job. Brian Williams was famously on air saying, look at the beauty of our weapons, as we illegally launched missiles at Syria during the Trump administration. Does that sound like truth-telling to you? No, that's like, military-industrial complex porn is what that is. You got people on these major liberal networks saying, today is the day Donald Trump became president. He got the best reaction from mainstream liberal media when he was doing illegal bombings of Syria. That's psychotic. That's insane. And she has nothing to say about any of that stuff. Another great example of how these guys aren't truth tellers. Look at the whole Chris Cuomo saga with him protecting his brother, and he was involved in the meetings, giving his brother the strategy that he should use. When everybody loved Andrew Cuomo, Chris Cuomo had him on his CNN show, and they would be like, tee-hee-hee, aren't you the best governor in the country? Tee-hee-hee, don't you love eating mama's meatballs together? This is what they would do. And then the second the shit hits the fan, and he's Me Too'd from 1,000 women, and he lied about the COVID numbers and all these corruption scandals, all of a sudden Chris Cuomo's out there like, I can't talk about my brother because I'm biased, so I want to do my job as a journalist. If you were doing your job as a journalist, you would have never had him on to play footsie with him originally. There's a massive conflict of interest. Don't tell me you're truth tellers. Don't tell me you're anti-conspiracy theorists when you have your own goddamn conspiracy theories. Now, again, to get back to Fox News, don't make me laugh. Christie wants to bring back, wants to rescue truth in the Republican Party, has nothing to say about Fox News. Well, Fox News, One American News Network, Newsmax, some of them are playing footsie with anti-vaxxers. Others are just outright brazenly anti-vax. They're also either playing footsie with or outright defending the Stop the Steal nonsense. This idea that Trump won the election when 60 court cases said he absolutely did not. We've litigated this, and even Republican judges said, no way, that's not true. The Arizona audit, which they thought, this is our slam dunk case. Watch, we're going to prove it was stolen by Democrats in Arizona. They did the audit. It turns out Joe Biden won by more votes than what they said on election night. So guys, point is here. Everybody's got their blind spots. There are conspiracy theorists and liars and truth deniers in every corner that you look. And probably the best part of this, totally underestimated in terms of a moment in this interview, is when Nicolle Wallace asks Chris Christie about Tucker Carlson. And he's like, I don't really watch Tucker's show. And then what he says is, but it's okay, because when I do watch Fox News, I usually watch Sean Hannity or Laura Ingraham. So the implication is, okay, if you say Tucker's this crazy conspiracy theorist, maybe I'll grant you that. Maybe I won't, but maybe I will. But it's okay, I don't watch him, so I don't know what he's saying. I just watch Sean Hannity or Laura Ingraham. Sean Hannity and Laura Ingraham are probably worse than Tucker Carlson. Sean Hannity is definitely worse than Tucker Carlson. That guy's wrong about virtually everything. He's maybe the biggest liar in media, or at least the most incorrect and wrong person in media. And if you go through one of his shows and just empirically fact-check everything he says, you realize how misleading he is. But see, Sean's it's the one that's accepted in polite society for whatever reason, and so, they just let that slide. Chris Christie is not going to be the arbiter of truth. That's the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard. He's just positioning himself for a 2024 run, and he wants to be able to say, hey, I'm Mr. Conservative, and I'm going to bring this party back to truth, but the only thing I'm against is Trump doing the Stop the Steal stuff. And again, the reason he says that is because he thinks it's an easy layup anti-Trump angle. Because he's so immersed in that media world, and everybody in the media world, among liberal media outlets, they all agree that the Stop the Steal stuff is crazy. So he feels like maybe that's representative of a sentiment in the country. I got news for you. The Republican base is still with Trump on that shit. So Christie might think he's posturing for a 2024 run and putting himself in a better position. Really, he might be digging a deeper grave for himself in terms of his electoral chances. And final point, this is a side point, but he brought up there, like, I don't want the Republican Party to become like when Herbert Hoover was president, and then, the Democrats ushered in an entire era and defined a generation. It was the New Deal era, because FDR won. You guys know this. I tell you this fact every day now. In 1938, when FDR had already been president for a while, Democrats had 80% of the House and 80% of the Senate, and FDR won 4 presidential elections. Now, what he's saying is we can't be, like another Herbert Hoover generation. Chris, don't worry, because I got news for you. Joe Biden ain't nothing like FDR. This Democratic Party is nothing like the Democratic Party back then. And the problem with the Democrats is they're not delivering on anything they say they were going to deliver on. So you know what's going to happen as a result of that? You're just going to have a backlash election. So even Christie's point is not correct when he says, like, if we don't get past this electoral denialism, we're just going to keep losing. That's effectively his point. But that's not even true, because the base of the party has not gotten past denying the election, and it's still 10 points up in the generic ballot because the Democrats haven't delivered on anything. FDR delivered on most of the things he wanted to deliver on. So there are no good guys in that exchange, and I think any real objective analysis of that interview would shine light on that fact. If you want to see me and Crystal Ball interview legends like Noam Chomsky, Cornel West, and more, subscribe to Crystal Kyle and Friends on Substack. $5 a month gets you the video version a day early. Remember, we take 0 ad dollars for this podcast. Or you can sign up on Substack for free and get the audio version a day later. Link in the video description box below.